Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming LUFENIA Plus event, Intersecting Wills back-to-back. The featured units are Caius from Final Fantasy XIII, Kain from Final Fantasy IV, Barret from Final Fantasy VIII and lastly Raijin from Final Fantasy VIII. This event also marks the debut of Kain's LD. We will be fighting two tunnelers which have 16 million HP each. They are weak against ranged, ice and holy. They absorb the earth element and are immune to their own debuffs. The turn requirement is 65. The HP requirements is 25,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. Firstly, let's go through the LUFENIA Plus Orb Conditions. The LUFENIA Plus Orb Conditions for the fight requires you to deal ranged damage to the boss. You will get bonus uptick if your ranged damage is at least 500,000 in one turn with one character. The orb will be activated at the 79% HP threshold with the counter of 8. There is a wide cast of units that deal ranged damage. The premium options are Kain, Barret, Prompto, and Tidus. Other ranged units that are viable are Maria, Shadow, Trey, Cypher, Arania, and Bald here. Overall, this is quite a simple orb, so you shouldn't have much difficulty in getting the units for the orb requirements. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly break them, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of calls abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Jack, Tidus. As the boss has a huge amount of HP damage up debuff calls like Kareza May, Gavranth, Ignis, and Maria are useful. Although a bit trickier to use, Aura type HP damage up calls like Queen and Kimari are also viable. As the boss gains magic resistances once their HP drops to 79%, Bring an Enchanter is a great option to enable your magic damage dealers. Ashe and Kareza May are good call options for the fight. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. Like other LUFENIA Plus events, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. They are Purim, Setzer, Bartz, Agrias, Kate Sith, Ishtala, Bartz, Paladin Cecil and Selphie. Depending on how you intend to play the fight, damage mitigation is an utility you might want to consider. Options include Beatrix, Core, 9, Warrior of Light, Gladio, and Celis. For damage dealers, you can consider the following units: Cloud, Tidus, Zidane, Garland, Ace, Cloud of Darkness, Shadow, and Galbes. The bosses have massive brave gains at certain HP thresholds, so having instant break will enable to break them easily. Units recommended are Caius, Jet, Arthan, Lon and Ren and Gavranth. If you intend to play without using delay or turn deletion, it is important to have debuff cleansers. Options include Yuna, Sid Reigns, Bald here, Yuffie, Mog and Pinlo. You can also prevent debuffs with debuff evasion by using Ignis, Aerith, and Afma. Selphie can grant the party 100% debuff evasion if you are using self-summon. If her LD comes, Lena is another great support option for the fight. For units that also deal ranged damage, I have highlighted them with a red border. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. The fight has exactly the same mechanics from the previous Tunneler Raid event, except the orb requirements and the auras are LUFENIA Plus conditions. It is important to watch out for the boss Recast Ability, Megaquake. It can inflict a poison called Senti Poison. The poison effect will become stronger if the boss uses the recast on the affected characters. The boss will activate special effects when its HP drop to the 79%, 59%, and 19% HP thresholds. I will talk more about the mechanics in the subsequent slides. Overall, this isn't a tough fight as you can do boss no turns easily with delay oriented squad. This is provided you can constantly do ranged damage to uptick the orb. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Like the previous LUFENIA Plus fights, the boss will gain big stats boosts, brave damage, and brave gain reduction auras when you deplete their HP to a certain threshold. The threshold's trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight, 79% HP threshold and 49% HP thresholds. At the start of the fight, it will boost its defense stats by 200%. At 79% HP threshold, it will further boost its defense stats to 300%. The maximum brave damage reduction auras is 70%. The maximum brave gain reduction auras are 90%. When the 79% HP threshold is triggered, the boss will activate its storing power mechanic. You will see blue bubbles appear on the ground. Because of this, the boss will gain magic resistance. The magic resistance won't be removed until the boss takes a turn to use Reaper or Reaper Plus. So what is the difference between the two? It depends on whether the boss is broken before it uses the move. If you break them, they will use Reaper, which is just a regular AoE brave attack. If you don't break them, it will use Reaper Plus, which is a brave gain, double AoE brave plus HP attack. This can be deadly if you don't have any damage mitigation for the party. If you are intending to do boss no turns with using magic units, it is important to bring an enchanter or using an enchant call so the magic damage dealers can still do normal damage. Next, I will be covering the boss key mechanics in detail. Firstly, let's cover the Recast Ability Mega Quake. At the start of the fight, Boss A will have 100% recast gauge while Boss B will have 20% recast gauge. The recast gauge will take 5 boss turns to fill. It will be charging faster if you get broken by it. The recast ability is a AoE guaranteed hit, brave gain, brave plus HP attack that ignores HP damage reduction effects. The attack will also dispel the left-handmost buff of the character and increases the boss brave after the attack. The attack will also inflict a frame debuff Senti Poison at 1 stack. This frame debuff don't lapse. You can only remove it with debuff cleansing skill or prevent it with debuff evasion. If you don't cleanse the debuff and the boss gets to use another recast, the Senti Poison will be upgraded to 2 stacks. The upgraded effect is the level of its HP poison. At 1 stack, the HP poison is 5%. At 2 stacks, the HP poison is 25%, and lastly at 3 stacks the HP poison is 50%. When it is at 3 stacks, the boss will raise its defense and attack by 100%. It will become immune to debuffs, delay and even delay from breaks. To dispel the effect, you need to cleanse the poison. It is very important not let the boss build up the Senti Poison to 3 stacks at all costs. The second key mechanic to watch out for is the trigger, absorbing power from the earth. This will be activated at 2 HP thresholds, 59% and 19%. The boss will delay themselves and gain massive brave. Breaking them will determine the type of attack you will face when they act. Breaking them, and if they get a turn, they will use Tail Cutter, which is single target guaranteed brave attack. If you don't break them, they will use Tail Cutter Plus, which is single target guaranteed hit brave plus HP attack. It will also dispel all buffs on the targeted character. Generally, the fight is relatively simple where most players do boss no turns to finish up the fight when the event is released in JP. If you intend to give them turns and play it normally, be prepared to bring debuff cleansers and damage mitigation units. If you are bringing magic units, do consider bring an enchant call so you can bypass the magic resistance that is triggered at the 79% HP threshold. I have come to the end of my boss guide presentation. Hopefully you find it useful. If you like the video, please give a like. Please subscribe to my channel for future gaming content. Good luck for the fight tomorrow. Bye.